Do you think there's not a single perpetrator or a group? We hear about the Janjaweed. Is there not one group going after another group, which is why people use the word genocide, which I know you take issue with?
Look, this conflict began in 1987, 1989. That's when the word genocide was first used by one side. 87, 89 is before the present government of Sudan even came into power. The causes of the conflict had to do with both long-term, short-term issues. The long-term issue was the land settlement that the British put into place at the time they conquered Darfur. This land settlement divided land between different tribes, but the nomadic tribes were given no land. Land was given basically to semi-nomadic and peasant tribes. The second cause was climate change in Darfur. The UN figures themselves show that over the last 40 years, the desert has advanced 100 kilometers, pushing the nomads of the north down south.
So arable land, farmable land, became much more scarce.
Became scarce and became the object of the conflict in 87, 89. And because life itself was at stake, the atrocities mounted. The conflict was really about who would survive and who would not survive.
When we look for deep roots of the crisis, do you also need to go back to colonial Africa, or is that too far back?
Well, as I said, the colonial period is the deep root of the crisis, which is the British settlement of land. There are some more immediate roots. In 1987-89, the Cold War focused on Chad. There were two sides in the Cold War. One was Reaganite America, with France and Israel arming one side. The other side was being armed by Libya and the Soviet Union. And in this Cold War, while the government was in Chad, the opposition was inevitably in Darfur and was being armed in Darfur. It is the flow of arms to the opposition in Darfur, to the Chadian opposition, which found its way among Darfuri groups and upped the level of fighting in Darfur. My point is that foreign powers were involved in the Darfur fighting much before the government of Sudan was. The final cause was the involvement of al-Bashir and his own government starting in the counterinsurgency of 2003-2004.
Talk more about what role you think President Bashir has played. The UN Commission on this stopped short of finding him personally responsible for genocide, but did say the military under him was responsible for crimes against humanity.
I think there is no doubt that crimes have happened in Darfur in 2003, 2004 in particular. I am doubtful that the crimes can all be attributed to the military and to President Bashir. This is for one reason. The counterinsurgency has been going alongside the civil war in Darfur. As I pointed out, the civil war began long before the counterinsurgency. So has drought and desertification been going on. So, for example, I look at the Government Accountability Office of the U.S. when in 2006 it looked at 6 different estimates of how many people have died in Darfur. It found that the estimates of Save Darfur Fund of 400,000 dead were simply not tenable. It found that the more tenable estimates came from the World Health Organization of 60 to 70,000 dead, and that of these, 80% were from drought and desertification, 20% were from direct violence. I have just seen figures for 2008 issued by the UN force in Darfur, and the UN force says that roughly about 2,000 civilians were killed in 2008. Of these 2,000, something like 900 were killed in fighting between different Arab groups over grazing land. The rest were killed by both rebels and by government, more by rebels than by government. So there are multiple perpetrators here. The number of deaths, civilian deaths, has gone down dramatically since January 2005. But that you do not see reported anywhere in the media.
My guest is Columbia University International Affairs professor Mahmood Mamdani. His new book is called Saviors and Survivors, Darfur, Politics, and the War on Terror. And we can take your phone calls for him. Anyone in the Save Darfur movement want to call and take issue, or anyone else, 212-433-WNYC. 433-9692. If the numbers that you just gave are accurate, why would the reporting on this be so inaccurate? Why would Nicholas Kristof from the New York Times make this such a moral crusade? He doesn't have a vested interest, does he? Why would other news media report it in the way that they have? And we'll deal with the question of governments, Western governments, and why they might afterwards. But why would the media?
Well, this is precisely the question that I was faced with. The first question that I asked myself was, usually African tragedies happen in the dead of the night. Darfur is the exception. It's become a global media issue. Why? And my answer was basically because Darfur is the only African tragedy which has become a domestic issue in the U.S. because of the organization of a powerful movement, Save Darfur movement itself. Second question, how come that even after the Government Accountability Office pointed out, and the State Department agreed, this is all on the website now, that Save Darfur estimates were simply not tenable. One of the Save Darfur researchers, Hagen, actually revised his estimates, but Save Darfur did not. It continued with signs in New York subway, 400,000 dead, 400,000 plus dead. So why? My answer is simply that people like Nicholas Kristof and others who were involved in Save Darfur were basically involved in it regardless of what was happening in Darfur.
Wow.
Darfur was a feel-good issue. Darfur was a feel-good issue, and they had removed Darfur from any politics, any history. I thought of Senator Fulbright when he wrote his book called Arrogance of Power, which is when people are so powerful, they don't really care what the facts are on the ground. They simply pursue and proceed with their own point of view until they are checked by facts on the ground.